What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a midweek episode of Francess and Friends. I thought, you know what? Your average person, and we're going to talk about regular guys and your average people this week because there's something that I'm going to ask Eric and Eytan about. You know, we're waiting on Eytan right now to join. Eric's on standby, and they reminded me right before we kicked off about when you go to a restaurant and it's like, you know, a group of 5 people and they won't seat you until the 5th person comes. One of the all-time scams out there. Now, I have a few friends who own restaurants, and they said, well, Andy, you want to know what people do? They have a group of 7, 4 people show up, then you seat them. And remember, each chair is a certain dollar amount. So if you give them an 8-person table, they end up using 4 people, you lose a ton of money. So I do understand that. And, you know, people who are here on this channel probably understand you want to get the maximum value on all your bets, and they want to get the maximum value on all their seats. So I understand that. But when your grandpa's running late and it's just that one extra chair, let me sit down. Let me sit down. I'm impatient. I'll order something to begin with. But anyway, today we're here at the beginning of week 13. I figured a regular guy, they want to get a lot of their bets in on Friday. So when we're sitting here talking about nonsense on a Friday, maybe Wednesday is a better nonsense day. The hump day, you know, when you need to get through the week. If there's someone who can help you get through the week, I don't want to, you know, you never should gas yourself up too much. I've always said that people's online dating profile should be created by a sibling, because that's the person who's actually going to be honest about that. But I do know I was told that I was hired just to kind of help the day go by quicker. For a tech company, I was brought in, and they brought me in there because I just helped the day go by quicker, and I learned a thing or two along the way. But it is week 13 here, and you want to know what I want to tell you guys? That I despise illegal contact, the penalty. You're not going to hear a whole ton of conspiracy. Oh, you know, the league wants them to win, man. No, I don't believe any of that stuff. But I want to see the stats on illegal contact calls and how many times they're called on the team who's not trailing. You know, the team's ahead, they have the ball. How many times is illegal contact called on the defense? Because as I've told many people, it's not pass interference. It's not holding. They needed to find like a Diet Pepsi of penalties, and it's illegal contact, which happens. They say, oh, you know, holding happens on 100% of plays. Well, illegal contact happens on 200% of plays. It's one of the all-time scam penalties that keeps teams in games and extends drives, and why you should never be impressed by passing records. Yes, that's right, because of illegal contact. All right, so I'm going to bring on Eric while we wait for, because on this show, this isn't the restaurant. This isn't Nobu, where Eric goes twice a week because he only goes to the nicest places in Los Angeles. If you're here, we're going to seat you. And now Eytan, perfectly, right as we're walking to the table, he just gets on the back of that line, and we're going to bring the both of them in right now, looking here, early week 13. What's going on? Eytan, Eric, how we doing?
Doing lovely. Eytan, always, you never know. Whenever he takes a call on Zoom, we do meetings all the time at Stochastic, at OddChopper, and he always has something falling from the ceiling or a baby in his arms. Or where are you right now, dude?
I am home in a corner right now of my house that is untouched and uninhabited by any other human being but myself. Right. Only for Andy, by the way.
Tell me you've cleaned up a lot of shit from 2 children without telling you cleaned up a lot of shit from 2 children.
There's nothing. This is just a wasteland.
Yo, this
right?
looks
I can't
like
even
one of those
face up, let alone my own shit up.
I was gonna say, this looks like you just got back from like Man vs. Wild. It looks like you've just endured a week out in Siberia or something like that. Maybe that's what a couple kids who are rambunctious in Pennsylvania will do to you.
Yeah.
Northeast Philadelphia has been referred to as Siberia many a times, my friend.
Well, that's a perfect
where I'm
segue,
from.
because I never got your take on this. I bring it up to Dave all the time, and Dave always thinks that I'm saying this as a negative. Not at all. What's your take on the carny status of Philly fans? Like, there are incidents week after week after week where they're acting like full animals, and this does not come from a judgment perspective. I am of the belief any way, shape, or form you can get a home field advantage, whether you're berating Bosa's brother on his way in or whatever it is that you're doing, short of actually injuring human beings, I'm all for it. Did you see this kid flip off the fan of the Buffalo Bills? There's a little kid going into the arena alongside a Buffalo fan, and he goes for the classic fake handshake. But in Philly, it's not a fake handshake slick the hair. It's a fake handshake directly into the Stone Cold Steve Austin middle finger, right in the guy's face. Look at that. Right in his face. Now, is this something that you'd be fine if one of your kids did?
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if one of my kids did that. I just know in my heart of hearts that I wouldn't be the one teaching him, by all means. And look, it's interesting too, right? Because when you do hear of incidents and you hear of just craziness, and if it's just a team versus team or whatever it may be, there's a lot going out in Eric's neck of the woods out there in LA with, San Fran and different stuff that you get. Philadelphia, though, it's just this small provincial town that happens to be the size of a large metropolis. And that's probably the easiest way that I can explain this, which is if anybody watching this video is from a small town, that's Philadelphia. Philadelphia just happens to be landmass and population, one of the larger cities. And there's metropolis and there's people coming in and out and there are different transplants, what have you. But the mindset, especially from a sports standpoint, is just it's almost and like you can appreciate this, Iowa State and all, just knowing like it's collegiate, it's provincial, it's collegiate, it's you grow up ingrained in this, different than just, oh, we're from New York City and we root for the Jets or anything like that. It's weird, it's different. And ultimately, it's just what separates Philadelphia, I think.
I don't think Eric's
hold up, because
I don't think Eric's buying it.
Yeah, let's rewind this to 2018, the post-Minneapolis Miracle. Stephon Diggs takes it up the sideline on the New Orleans Saints. It's beautiful times. It's gorgeous. And then I remember watching pregame and looking at my phone, and this is like when social media just started to explode, the TikToks, the Instagram Live, and all that shit. You saw that kid get in the face of the Minnesota Vikings fan at the NFC Championship game, 2018, and he goes, "Go Birds!" In the most annoying way possible, the most punchable face that I've ever seen. From that moment on, I knew we were doomed. I knew we were going to lose that football game. We lose in a horrendous fashion. It was just, "Go Birds!"
Look, Andy, if I may, the most punchable face of all time is that brat up in New England who had that poster of like 50 championships in 10 years. It was just like bragging to the world about the sports superiority up there. I'll tell you real quick, fellas, why the Minneapolis Miracle ended in Philadelphia, because a pair or a couple of jackasses decided to desecrate the Rocky statue with a Vikings jersey and toilet paper and all. I hate the Rocky statue. I despise the Rocky association with Philadelphia.
You hate fun and
even
warm
I
hugs
knew that was
and
sacrilegious.
Oh my God. Get over it.
I feel you on that. I always remember Bill Burr making fun of a city that quote unquote has to idolize a fictional character because they've been so bad in sports that they actually have to bring
Joe
in
Frazier,
a character
put him up
from a
there,
movie.
get Rocky out. Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. That's what he used to say. And I assume you've heard about that legendary Bill Burr Philadelphia rant, the one that went on for minutes on stage where, I mean, it's something to look up on your own time. It's a legendary thing in Philly. I forget what the venue was, but it was like a comedy fest, and there was all headliners, and the Philly crowd was just massively booing everybody, no matter who it was. Like, these were great comedians. And then he just went out there. He goes, "I'm not doing my act." And he just shit on the city of Philly. And that was one of the things that he said. He goes, and your fucking baseball team that dresses up like candy canes all year. And it was really funny. And at the end, Of course, what does the Philly crowd do? They cheer him. He shits on the city for
Yeah.
his whole allotment of time, and he
Unreal.
was the only comedian who got cheered. So
There you go.
I appreciate that stuff. Eric, I don't know, man. As a Minnesota fan, it's got to be tough to watch them these last couple of
It's insanely
seasons.
bad.
Yeah, I just want to die. I want to crawl into a hole and never emerge. But other than that, I'm very happy and very well adjusted. The nice thing that I am doing, so I guess this is like the I don't know, it's just what's going on in my life, but it's one of those things where it's like I'm excited because I get to cheer for a fan base that has something going for it. I'm married into an Oregon Duck family, and my mother-in-law, she turns 65 next week. She's the biggest Oregon Duck fan on planet Earth. I got 2 tickets. I'm going with my mother-in-law, just my mother-in-law and I, to Vegas on Friday to go to the Oregon-Washington Pac-12 championship game. And I'm just excited because I'm going to get to wear the colors of a team and cheer for a team that's a 9.5-point favorite. I don't know what it's like to be favored in big games or to have things going for you as a team. I don't get those kind of things because all I know is misery, pain, sadness. Misery, pain, sadness. You can rinse, repeat every single year. That's Minnesota sports.
I cannot. Wow. I can't fault you for that. I will tell you this. The New York Islanders won 4 straight championships. Then they won another 3 playoff series in a row. They won 19 straight playoff series. That's the current record. Want to know what happened right after then? I was born. They've never won since. So
yeah.
Flyers right here
with you.
Never
seen a Super Bowl. Only seen one NBA Western Conference Finals. 03, the Timberwolves. It's just like, what did I do to deserve this? Eytan, don't answer that.
Well, no. What will you? Here's the question I have: is what gambling related activity will be done by you and your mother-in-law? Like, are you going to hit the craps table?
Taking her straight to the craps table. Yeah. I have the coolest mother-in-law that has ever roamed the earth. Again, diehard college football fan. And then legitimately was like, are you gonna teach me to play craps while we're there? And yes, I will. Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to dial down your bets so that she believes that you're a more sane individual than you probably actually are? The classic scam where, oh, look, I'm a good guy, man. Wait, so say the tickets. We would like one, what is it called? A betting ticket on the Oregon. Act like you've never been here.
One betting ticket, please.
Yeah, father-in-law did the taxes this year. He is well aware. He is well aware of what goes on in my life. That is for sure.
Well, I don't know how much
I'll never claim the stuff on tax.
I don't know how much DFS is factored into those wait, what did you just say?
Never claim this stuff on tax.
Oh my God. Goodbye. Continue on.
Let them come to you for, they've got a shit ton of people in this country who are years back end on owing tax, and we are fucking broke as a nation.
I prefer to be in good standing with the IRS
before they start coming for you.
Oh,
right.
The
top bet on OS Premium is don't do your taxes, and it's got Eytan's face right next to it.
Wait a second. And let me clarify. It's not that I said don't do your taxes. It's don't claim the DFS or betting winnings. You've got about 2 to 3 years grace period before they start coming for you. That's all I'm saying.
Today's episode brought to you by the Libertarian Party.
Now,
lowercase, if anything.
I'll wait for this in a second. I'm trying to just go off the top of my head. Eytan, you don't really do DFS, right?
Oh no, I partake. I just don't win.
Okay, so well, you're not the only one. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of pros complaining in these last couple of days that the world isn't right. This is Carmine Falcone's Gotham. All the undeserving people are winning all the tournaments. And as I told Ben last week, I love when that happens. I love when the Charlie Buckets buy themselves one Wonka bar and end up winning the millions, and all the people. Because the distinct advantage that pros have when they can just play 150 max lineups, I'm always rooting for Buckets. Always. And people are getting pissed off. The pros are getting pissed off because you're getting naked quarterbacks winning back-to-back millions, and we're seeing people vent on Twitter and whatnot. I saw Eric say a couple things. He was pissed off about Cooper Kupp and maybe a couple of the other Rams. Are you in that boat, Eric? Are you pissed off when Charlie Bucket gets a taste?
No, it's not that I'm pissed off. And again, what I'm going to say is that there are things that we maybe don't understand about DFS, and it's ever evolving, ever changing. We now have the Sims tool at Stochastic that helps you be able to simulate slates multiple times and see which lineups get to the top in terms of expected ROI. And then you can kind of capitalize on those, but it's no guarantee that you're going to go out and win. It's that you're going to put yourself in the best position to win over any long period of time. The NFL is so insane. And the reason that it is crazy when it comes to a Millie Maker, one, it's the largest tournaments you're going to run into. You're running into 300,000 entries week in, week out in that $20. Even the 555, you're putting up a large sum of money to compete against 5,000 or 10,000 lineups in order to try to have that one Wonka bar. Two, what do you mean only two? That's another Wonka quote for anybody who's the teacher. But anyway, we're looking right now.
Of course.
We're looking at the quote, or we're looking at Jesse, my dude Jesse over on Twitter, who he likes to bitch and complain from time to time. That's kind of his MO. That's kind of who he is and what he does. But this is like unverifiably, this is not a good lineup. And we can have the conversations about what makes a good lineup, what doesn't make a good lineup, and maybe something's ahead of its time where you take a naked quarterback, but it all has to kind of be relative. Last week Thursday, it was Brock Purdy with that situation where, hey, you didn't necessarily, or 2 weeks ago it was the week
Sundays
12
ago.
million. Yeah, or week 11, week 12.
Yeah.
So you have the Brock Purdy situation, expensive pass catchers. You have a Christian McCaffrey who's priced out. You have an Ayuk who's priced out. Deebo Samuel, not exactly cheap. And George Kittle, the most expensive tight end on the board. For this one, Josh Allen, you had pass catchers that were attainable. And that's where I run into an issue. Yes, Josh Allen gets things done with his legs. Yes, he throws 2 touchdowns and he runs for 2, and that ends up being kind of his capitalization there. But between Davis and Kincaid and Diggs and Shakir, who is a cheap piece there are a lot of ways to potentially put yourself in a correlated situation to get to the top of that lineup. Now, this person, again, hit every single ping pong ball to hit the Powerball ticket in order to have it work out this way. And there's a part of me that always looks at rushing quarterbacks as having that differentiating piece, which is they capitalize on all the touchdowns. But if it isn't a Jalen Hurts who has expensive pass catchers in Smith and Brown and makes it less attainable, they don't throw to the tight end position unless it's Dallas Goedert out there who could be back this week. There's just certain pricing that has to be factored in. And when it's not, yeah, you can win the money. And we are happy to have the public, to have people who maybe aren't as in tune with the DFS lingo and correlation and things of that nature. Yeah, exactly. But congratulations, Charlie, you won. I knew you could do it. It's not a good lineup. It doesn't change the fact that it didn't have the normal pieces that you should have in order to try to achieve upside.
Okay, so
have you ever had a Wonka bar, by the way?
Yes, delicious.
My version of the Wonka bars are those
Scrubby diddly bars.
No, so they're
real life Wonkas.
Yeah, they're good.
I get it. But there's a bar that Eytan, you have kids. When kids are trying to fundraise, there are these bars that are only fundraiser bars, but they're better than every chocolate bar I've ever had. I forget.
They have the rice crackles in them.
That's one of the options.
Right.
One has almonds. These things are incredible. Why are they not on the shelves on the random? They'd be selling out. I don't understand.
I'm sorry, Andy.
No, I don't understand why the companies aren't just putting them next to Reese's. They're better than all that stuff. On Halloween, be dishing out I forget there's a crown on it, I think. They're incredible,
I know what you're talking about.
But they hoard them for charity, which sounds like an awful quote. They hoard them for charity. But
no, you're right. Tax-paying individuals should be able to get so let me give you a life hack here, all right? Down the street, we have a store called Ace Hardware. And the reason why I even say it that way is because I think Ace has been taken over out of business, regionally. In
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware.
Exactly.
Folks. Gotcha.
Wow, that was nice.
Thank you. There's also that old third base song, Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, but that's a different story altogether. With that said, though, Ace, when you go to the front and you buy whatever the hell you're buying there, it doesn't matter if it's that big egg cooker or whatever, they have a box of Ace branded chocolate bars. And these things are amazing because they're not mass produced like the Reese's that need all the wax and the bullshit in there, nor are they backed by the chocolate lobby, which insists that only the big name candies get full access at the front. This is a smaller operation with Ace, so they push their own chocolate bars. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Big
I challenge
chocolate.
anybody. I challenge anyone to go to Ace and buy one of those Ace branded dark chocolate bars and tell me it's not the best thing that they've had at the shelf. So there's a life hack.
I love running miles to the left on conversation, but I did want to say to Eric, when it goes to that unstacked Purdy lineup that won, the optimal lineup actually was a correlated Trevor Lawrence stack with Ridley, a single stack. So it's not like it didn't win the quote unquote traditional way. It's just that no one played the true Millie Maker lineup. Maybe that was the, I didn't double check for the this past Sunday, but my theory, zero stats, zero data, and I'm not looking into it. We need to maybe ask somebody to do that. Who? I have no clue. But I theorize that on bye weeks, Charlie Buckets have a way higher percent chance of winning the Millie Maker because there are fewer players in the pool. So the likelihood of some snake unstacked wacky ass lineup hitting are way higher. Once there are no buys and there are all these players on the field, then that's Willy Wonka's time. There's 150 entries for every tournament. A regular guy can never keep up. But on these bye weeks, when many teams are off the slate, like all these teams on Thanksgiving, there's 10 teams on the slate, that's when Wonka's in trouble. That's when Slugsworth comes in, starts taking business away. And I don't know if it's true, but it seems like, watch starting, week 15, watch all you guys. Tell your buddy there, he's going to start cleaning up. You're going to start cleaning up. All the Wonkas are going to have themselves a day. That's just a theory of mine.
So I don't completely disparage that theory. I think there might be something to that. Again, I'm not going to go back test that specifically. I go to the post-contest simulator. I'll poke around and see kind of what my ROI for my lineups were after the fact. Always good to see where ownership comes in. And ownership's been really hard to predict. I know that's something we talked about before this show as well, where it is a difficult avenue to try to project out ownership with the Sims tool being introduced and having people be okay playing pieces of chalk that might project out exponentially better and knowing which ones are the good ones, which ones are the volatile pieces, where are projections volatile. But I think what is always the framework of NFL DFS, again, we have one day a week where you're really firing on a main slate where you have these millies, and you have 18 weeks in the regular season to be able to fire up, the $20, if you will, that Millie Maker contest. And what makes it so interesting is, like, if everybody in the lineup or everybody in the field is stacking, then proportionally it's good to not stack. So that is a fact. But like, you want to always look like, what are other people doing? There aren't enough people that are stacking correctly, or there used to be this idea of like, I can only play 2 pass catchers, and now we've seen some onslaughts take it down. Oh, I can't play 2 tight ends in the lineup. We've seen these kind of styles win, and things always change, and it's relative to the pricing. It's relative to what other people in the field are doing, because you kind of want to zig when other people zag, but there still aren't enough people that are shying away. Like, there's too many uncorrelated lineups as is. So when one does win like this, it's kind of like highlighting something that you probably shouldn't be doing long term.
It's like the World Series of Poker, right? In the main event, it's usually a freak who wins it because there's just so many freaks in the tourney. But then once you start getting to those smaller fields and the real players, it's almost always the same names that are like at the top of the sheets and whatnot. But when it comes to that massive tournament, the one with the most eyes on it, it's like you see a different name on there every year. And that takes me to a point that I've said, not just for this, every job, I feel like Eytan's going to be on this with me. I think companies need to hire a regular guy, a Joe Blow sports guy, a guy who thinks he knows, he's got 4 sports teams in his bios, and they're speaking of correlation, there's no correlation. There's Dallas Cowboys, New York Rangers, San Diego Padres. You got to bring in a regular guy and ask him what he thinks about the slate. because that's what Joe Blow sports guy's going to think. These projections that were out there, and they go, I've never seen anyone miss so bad on Jonathan Taylor against the Bucks run D. Of course, that's the chalk thought of sports guy. Don't play a running back against the Bucks run D. Derrick Henry against Carolina's run D. Joe Blow is loving putting Henry in there. I don't know how they miss on that. So you guys got to run the machines. You got to run Skynet, and then there just needs to be some schlub you guys bring in who tells you what he thinks. And this isn't just for DFS. This is in real life. I can't tell you how many companies. I was there once. I was a mole in there. They were talking about an NHL product that they wanted to people to buy new features. And they said, hey, we're going to introduce this program. You're going to allow to buy something that shows you the last 5 minutes of every game. So I went, okay, someone might want to watch any game that's close. Then they go, and also we're going to give them an upgrade option so they can watch the last 5 minutes of the first period and second period. And then I went, I gave this, this guy's tiers above me in the office. And I'm like, what are you going to do? Who's watching the last 5 minutes of the first period and then leaving? You're getting blacked out. Who's going to do that? And nobody was there to say that's an awful idea. I'm like, this can't go through. It went through. They offered that for a little bit. I'm like, they needed a regular guy. And I think companies need a regular guy. Ours, maybe as sick as it is to say, I might be the regular guy for this company in the most irregular fashion. What do you think about that, Eytan? That whole concept?
Yeah, I think you're onto something. Even if it's just for balance, right? Even if it's just to see what somebody's brain is thinking that you don't normally have access to. I will say this, though, and this is something that I've had a conversation about for a long time, especially as analytics have taken over the NFL, which is a crazy baseball. Yes, I think even in other sports like basketball, there's some space for it. But if a team hired a sharp, like if a team actually hired somebody who understands the nuances of betting and why there are bets and the statistics that go into setting lines and why teams lose as a result and understanding from a real betting standpoint. And they went to the betting chart, which is, if you outrun your opponent by 30 plus yards, you've got a 70% chance of covering a spread, as opposed to you're up 16 points with 3:33 left in the third quarter and you should be going for I guarantee you, if teams hired a betting sharp, somebody who approached the game, even in game, like covering a spread. And I'm not saying from I want to win money. I'm just saying to use that knowledge, because people who are beating betting markets, especially ATS spread markets in the NFL, know the game better than anybody that's currently on the sidelines outside of 5 coaches.
Not for nothing, Eytan. You throw the right jacket and a headset on you, you kind of look like you could be on an NFL sideline, man.
Matt Patricia Jr.
I'm fat enough. I could probably get away with it that way.
Can we get a side by side Matt Patricia with the fucking with the pencil in the ear?
By the way,
I need it. I want it. So I gotta have it.
I got TV tonight. There's no way they'll let me in the building like this.
All right, maybe we can then we can use this to talk about some of the stuff this upcoming week. Maybe we could forecast what a regular guy would do versus a non-regular guy. There's no better starting point than your Philadelphia Eagles. I'm starting just to hear the tricklings of the regular guys out there. Do you believe the Eagles are underdogs at home? They got one loss. That's the Joe Blow. I'm hearing them. I hear them out the window in the morning.
But they didn't open. And I'm actually curious. I want to defer if I can to Lindy on this as far as the game. Look at that. I've got way more grays on my face than Patricia has, and he's fatter than me. So let's be fair to this.
He's at a bar somewhere just chilling. I bet the grays are there now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't think so. He's terrible.
He's awful. I hate everything about him. Here's what I would say, though, as far as the Eagles are considered. When this thing first opened up, and he can attribute this on the Discord, every week, like Sunday evening when these lines are out, I try to put 2 or maybe 3 look-ahead lines for the following week to get ahead of the market and what have you. Like Houston -2.5, it's now to 3.5. So something along those lines. I got in and I posted it right away. Philadelphia -110. So at the very least, this team opened up as a pick'em, although they were money line favorites when this thing first opened up on DraftKings. They have since been bet into an underdog. So I just wanted to draw that distinction because I think there's a significant difference between DK, whoever, opening this thing up at -110 or a pick'em type scenario on the money line, and now they've been bet to a 3-point underdog. That's the difference for me. And to be fair, I took them at -110 and I took them at +3.
Now, what's your take on the, there are a lot of people who think they're a pretty lucky team, and there are a lot of people who are saying, okay, but then there are some people who say they're designed to play this way.
No, they're not.
Okay, my take is they look like a team that's playing with a 1-game cushion. That's how me and you, I feel like, would play too. It's just, I'm sorry, it's just psychology. It's not a must-have it, so I'm not going to be amped up like it's the end of the world. It's the opposite of what the Niners were coming out of the bye, which is like, this needs to change now. And that's what it looks like. Slow starts. If we come back, Gabe Davis catches that, oops. But when push comes to shove, they are going to be able to bring it, but they still got that 2-game cushion. This is a hard one. Do you like the Eagles in this game to make like a playoff statement or something? Because you don't want the Niners idea in their head that they can go in there and win, and then all of a sudden, if you crack them at home, it's like, yeah, you're going to come here for the 3rd straight time and get cracked if you come back during the playoffs.
Look, man, I'll say this real quick because I think, again, I'm really curious to hear how Lindy looks at this game, especially being out on the West Coast. And I know LA is not San Fran by any means, but here's the thing. If the Philadelphia Eagles and San Francisco 49ers did not go through this serious war of words, both just nonsense, the Twitter stuff, the media in San Fran, the players in San Fran, they got lucky, all this bullshit about how and why they won the game. I would absolutely say this is a letdown spot. They just survived overtime against Buffalo. They've got Dallas coming up. They don't need to make a statement against San Fran to prove they're the better team right now. All of that, and I would pound San Francisco even at -3. But because the Niners ran their damn mouth and they talked all this shit and they continue to pile on even up to this week, they've alerted the Eagles and they've almost put smelling salt underneath a sleeping Eagles team to kind of wake them up. That's where I think the danger lies.
All right, here we go. This is one of those football games that I think is like just such a clear stay away.
Yeah.
I think that's probably for me where I start. It is so difficult to believe that Philadelphia can keep winning these close games against good teams constantly. And they've played close games against bad teams. Washington, they won by a touchdown. Washington week 4 at home, they struggled in the rain, had that issue there where they had to go completely ballistic at the end of that game just to pull that one through. You've seen them win close games against Dallas. You've seen them win close games, come from behind victories against KC. And then the Buffalo one just kind of took it over the top. San Francisco defensively is so ridiculous, getting Young on the other side of Bosa, that there aren't really words for it. Because you get Charvarius Ward, he's going to be one of the top cornerbacks in the game. Warner in the middle, he's going to be one of the best linebackers in the game. Defensively, they're the best team in football when healthy. And the Eagles, they've been giving it up to wide receivers. I think it can't be understated how important Deebo Samuel is to the San Francisco team. But if you were to ask me to handicap what I believe this game is, I think it's 2.5 San Francisco all day. And if you want to talk semantics, a half point here, a half point there sounds great, but there's so many other spots on the board. So this will definitely be the game we're all looking forward to watching on Sunday, but I have no clue how I go about touching it at its current line.
Oh, of course. I mean, to me, it's a complete stay away. And the determining factor to me is, little Brock Purdy and
little Brock Purdy. Shout out Iowa State. Put some respect on his name. How about that?
Oh no, I really like him. I'm a supporter. Good. I'm one of the supporters. Yeah. It's a tough environment to play.
Tough.
And it looked different when he was playing there, man. God, and if it's rainy and stuff,
he got hurt on the first possession.
I know.
You guys
not the first play, right?
No,
first possession.
Oh, okay, yeah.
How in the world are you guys looking at this game at 3 and saying to yourself, a team that has survived is at home in what most likely will be another cold and wet scenario, and you're going to stay away from this team at a key number of 3? Again, 2.5 different.
But
Eytan, are you familiar with Mark
Twain? I'm in there.
Eytan, are you familiar with Mark Twain? Because the great Mark Twain did once say that the coldest winter I ever spent was the summer in San Francisco. And there is no doubt this San Francisco team is going to show up in bad weather and be fine. What are you doing, Andy?
I'm just that you're, I was trying to absorb a quote. Like, when someone's like, the great anyone said, that's when I get in. Okay, what did he say? What did he say? Oh, okay, yes. No, if you give me an extra half.
I'm giving you a half. It's at 3. It was at 3 earlier today when I bet it.
I said an extra half.
10-1 team, getting 3 points at home.
That's the regular guy.
That's how good San Francisco is.
That was a regular guy line. Did you hear that? They're 10-1 and getting.
And here's the thing. They're going to win by 2 touchdowns, and you're going to say you were right. And then I'm going to, it could be San Francisco, and it's like, oh, we had it wrong. It's just all about playing like what the percentage run out is based on all of the factors put together. And I just know this San Francisco defense, having a playmaker like Chase Young, opposite of Joey Bosa, it's just cheating. It's cheating.
Eytan, pick 'em, San Fran plus 3.5, Eagles. Anything in between, stay away.
Okay.
That's my. Okay. How about we go to the most boring game in town? How about we do that? Let's go to the Steelers then, because they're playing Arizona, and you saw what my guy, the Chalk-a-Roach, Kyron Williams, did against them on the ground. Now everyone's attributing that to like, oh my God, it was a revelation. No, he did that against them in the previous game too. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Arizona gives you what you want on the ground. And these Steelers, who are going to be rotating both those running backs, I don't know what their lines are set at, unfortunately. I know last week they had them both set at like 50 yards. Can't this be a game where they absolutely smash their ground totals? Because yes, I know there's a new coordinator and whatnot, but if the defense is playing relatively well, they'll continue to run. When Najee Harris is getting to 100 yards, you're finding some opportunities on the ground. I see this game being like last week. They kept getting the ball back and they kept having opportunities to run it. Do you like that, or am I silly?
Go ahead, Eytan. Eytan?
Yeah.
He needs a different room to talk about the Steelers.
Well, yeah, because I don't want anybody in my house to hear me talking about this football game, to be honest with you.
Come on now. It's not that bad. Here's the thing. You're going to get that 50-50 snap share. That I think that, last week it was maybe a little bit overhyped, saying Jaylen Warren was going to get a majority of the work, yada, yada. Jaylen Warren fumbled it, and that changes everything immediately with like every offensive coordinator. You never know the tendencies of who's going to get a quick hook. And Jaylen Warren maybe saw a little less work as a result, but still 53% of the snaps for Najee Harris, 49% of the snaps for Jaylen Warren. Yeah, this is an Arizona team that isn't all that good for sure. I'm actually kind of curious. Kyler Murray's been out there running. He's had 3 rushing touchdowns. He's had one in every single game that he's played now this season. I think on the road in Pittsburgh, maybe they go a little bit lighter with him here. They don't like, this is your guy. There's so much money wrapped up in him. I think you might be call plays a little bit differently to avoid Highsmith and Watt because they're pretty freaking good. I don't know. It's just one of those spots where I'm with you. Where like on paper, this is something that looks closer to efficient, but like I'm actually thinking about backing Pittsburgh pretty heavily here.
The removal of Matt Canada is probably the most tangible thing you could point to. And
Pat Fryermuth, welcome to the fray, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, just targeting different people in the quick game, and also just relying on a run game that, for whatever reason, that idiot ignored or neglected for the most part. So I think you're right. Like, if you don't like a side or total here, targeting Steelers running backs in overs makes the most sense for me.
Yeah, especially when you get 100 and a touchdown, or 99, that asshole that on one unnecessary carry at the end lost one, removed me from the bonus because I played him last week to get off the potential Warren chalk, which is another chalk percentage that I think they missed. But how can people not know that when they quote unquote name somebody the starter and then he has over like 150 total yards? I got to have a talk with these percentages. But Yeah, how about Eytan? You do that early week show. I'm trying to get better at because I fall victim. I'm not a last second better, but I'm a tweener where I think, oh yeah, I got it in early. It was Friday. That's not early. So what is one that maybe I should have looked at? Were you mentioning Jacksonville? And I know it's already too late, but you said they moved to 3. Oh no, Houston, you said.
Right. No, and look, we don't always get it right. And I'll give you an example. One we got right this week. The other is kind of moving in the other direction. I don't think there's that big of a difference between 3.5 and 4 to where I'm truly nervous. But I also think too, and both of you guys or anybody else that's out there betting, there's so much of a stress on CLV and there's so much of a stress on getting in and getting ahead of market movement that I think we as human beings have a case of FOMO, where it's like, you have to get in early, you have to get in early. But there are plenty of times, and I'll just defer to a video, our flagship video, if you will, here with Ian doing the Lindy's locks, especially for the NBA, where you pick and choose, you pick spots just because you have information, just because you're kind of leaning somewhere. The gap of time can really do you in. So in the NFL, if there's, something about a quarterback, or if there's something about, a key offensive lineman, Lane Johnson, for example, may not play, whatever that may be. So that's something that I definitely try to factor in. Weather, travel, offensive and defensive linemen, and then quarterback injury. So I'm trying to look at all these. Houston laying 2.5 in the open line made no sense to me. Denver, great. I understand what they've been able to put together. This is a team that still has a super negative point differential, that has still been struggling at times to get outgained. Houston is in a perfect spot. They were in that football game. It was the double doink that cost them, I understand, a chance at OT. There was nothing massively concerning about that loss to where I think they're not what they were leading into that game. So I wanted to get ahead thinking it would go to 3. It's now pushed through 3, and it's actually at 3.5, surprisingly for me. I did not expect it to now you're laying a hook with the Texans, but that's great. We're below that key number. The other one is New Orleans, and I think that there's actually some value here if this continues to move, to take New Orleans on the money line outright. It's not because of Derek Carr, Dennis Allen, who are actually much better in this spot as far as home dogs are concerned than laying points on the road. It's more about the Saints defense. This is a suffocating unit. They're limiting points per game, which is just gigantic, going up against a Detroit team that everybody just is giving the benefit of the doubt that they will bounce back because they had an ugly loss against the Packers.
Can somebody give me the New Orleans Saints record?
5-6.
What did I tell you the last time when you bet against Carr and won? There is no more of a 500 guy in this world than Derek Carr. He's down 1. Here comes the win. He's going to get exactly excited. Right. He's going to play a bad team on the road, and here comes the next slide. Easiest guy to make money on. Check that record and watch. They will get that tie. They will get that tie to make sure he's still at 500.
Look, if Derek Carr and Dennis Allen are laying points on the road, you automatically fade them. If they're getting points at home, I think you should at the very least raise an eyebrow and see if it's worth exploring. My only point in all of this is Detroit's defense is giving up an average of 31 points per game over their last 3, despite going 2-1, and no less than what they gave up against the Bears of all teams. Granted, Fields back and all, but against the Bears and all teams. This is the spot where New Orleans defense can suffocate Jared Goff, and we saw what happens if Goff can't do much. That's what happens on Thanksgiving. So I think the Saints have a lot of value at 3.5. I thought it would dip, and I would have the hook. It's moved to 4. Okay, no big deal.
Yeah, and as I've talked about these last couple of weeks, it's not just the last 2 games. I mean, Lamar absolutely destroyed them. People were trying to attribute that to Lamar, but Lamar's been okay passing the ball ever since. And this defense, it's the early season defense from last year. They somehow, I just love reputations that keep going and keep going and keep going, despite repeated evidence that that's not the case. They have that quote-unquote tough defense reputation. Jordan Love just carved them up, and they were getting crushed the week before that. And then against Lamar, more times than not, that defense is massively struggling. Now, last week, I did a show before Thanksgiving, and I was talking to Ben, and I brought up this guy because I guess the one benefit here, we're on, it's Wednesday, so The day after Wednesday, the last time I checked, is Thursday. And there happens to be a Thursday night football game, so we may as well talk about that. I'm just going to ask you guys the same things that I said to Ben last week. I go, explain to me how, once again, Brandon Cooks' receiving total is at 36.5. He's the clear number 2. It's not like, oh, who's getting it this week? Gallup's like the number 4. Ferguson, yeah, he's used not massively, unless it seems like when they play really physical defenses, he gets more looks. But once again, Cooks is lingering around 40. If I personally was setting a line on him, it would be like 57. We know he runs so many deep routes. I can't say I'm an idiot because he keeps hitting every week. Is this the week where I get screwed?
So I guess what we're having is a debate about mean and median, what the difference is going to be between them and why a line is set at a certain place. Like, the line isn't set correctly when you start assessing things from a mean perspective. When you say, what has he been doing here on average of late? Obviously, utilization changes throughout an NFL season, and somebody who can be as dynamic as Brandon Cooks and has for multiple offenses throughout his career, that's going to be kind of the debate. Is like, all right, well, his average total here of late, I mean, God, he just went for 72 and then 42 and then 173 and 49. But like, there are so many times that the targets just get so funneled towards a CeeDee Lamb, even towards a Jake Ferguson. Shout out the pride of Rapid City, South Dakota. But like, Brandon Cooks, you're not seeing more than 4 targets in a majority of the games that he's playing. So he needs to have those targets be extremely valuable. And then you're talking about median situations where, you get those 4 targets. What is that middle outcome going to be? I would argue that it's going to be in that 20-ish range, upper 20th, lower 30-ish range. So I think that's kind of where the line is being set at and why it's being set there. I think you're probably right, where if they continue to utilize him the way they have in recent weeks, this number looks very, very low. But it's basically 4 of the last 5 weeks, and then every other game he hasn't exceeded this number. And so we're just looking at a median distribution, and it's going to be somewhere in that range. So I think it's probably set pretty close to correct, unless, again, you're early to the fact that, hey, when this offense is firing, which it is, Brandon Cooks sees an uptick in production.
Well, it's a pass-happy system. The Brandon Cooks early in the year, I would never suggest him. He wasn't getting the targets, wasn't getting the looks. He's not just the number 2. He's the clear number 2. It could have been even bigger days. He's getting, like, I understand that maybe the targets are around 4, but it's like, if I'm a line maker, I'm saying, well, this isn't early in the year. This is like, this is way more. These last couple of weeks are way more indicative.
I would argue the main reason you're seeing the role change for Brandon Cooks, it's actually more to do, I think, with Tony Pollard, somebody who was seeing mid-20s touches in week 2, week 3. And now we've seen that kind of cut down to the lower teens in a number of those games. Now, in a game script against Seattle, they're 8.5-point favorites, I think is the prevailing number that we have for it. You're probably seeing Dallas playing ahead here yet again, and maybe you see those little ticks, but they've had so many blowout games that it's so hard to know what's going to happen in an actual competitive spot. Is this one of those competitive spots? I'm not positive, but I will say the Brandon Cooks one, I mean, it's just one of those where it's really good until it's not. I think you kind of want to see more targets than he's had. He saw the 1 double-digit target game. Otherwise, I don't think he's exceeded 5 targets in any one of these games since week 3, where he had the 7 targets. So yeah, it's going to be, are those high value targets? Dak's been playing absolutely out of his mind, and I'm not the biggest Dak stan whatsoever, but the Cowboys, they're 8-3 and 8-3 against the spread this season for a reason. And a lot of that is how good Dak's been.
Yeah, they throw so much. All their running backs, including Pollard, to me look like scat backs. So they're not just going to continue to run up the middle, which is why they continue to throw. So yeah, I guess the problem is, if you see it too much, there goes that line at 40. Like, next, if he does it again, now it's going to be 53, and there goes that. I guess I will kick it to Eytan for one thing. You want to throw one thing for tomorrow that you like that maybe I haven't checked out as much?
Yeah, I mean, look, the obvious here would be just how bad Seattle is against the run. So I'm going to factor in Tony Pollard right now into this and say CeeDee Lamb 100, DK Metcalf 100, Tony Pollard 80 on the ground. That's my $5 no sweat same game parlay. And look at that face. Hopefully Lawrence had Lindquist face on there, because that was the equivalent. And the only thing I'll ever get from him of, wow, I really like that, Shander. Y'all never hear it, but that was his face right there.
My God, I give you love and affection, just never in front of people. Just never in front of people. We have this. It's the same thing I have with Adam. It's just like we have to have this fake hate so that we can actually like build a brand over here. You know, it is what it is.
It's all about branding.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Biggie and Pac. Those two guys loved each other.
Let's hope
we all know how
end up
that
a little bit
ended. That
better.
was fun.
Yeah, let's hope things end up better for us, and I'm not Suge Knight in jail.
Exactly. Or Mike Lawrence is Puffy getting sued for sexual harassment now.
That's so funny. Hey, I wanted to thank you guys for coming on. I really do appreciate it. This was good.
Fellas.
This is more of a Royal Rumble approach. I really do appreciate that. And Eric, same everything with the DFS and whatnot. I'm trying to kind of trickle that into the shows a little bit more because I think it's the natural progression for people who play fantasy football, which is obviously a huge percentage of people. The next step naturally is into DFS, and it's good for them. It's good for them to know these things.
And I come from the opposite approach where I started DFS, and that's the only thing that I had exposure to. And I just found myself in Vegas every weekend and was like, well, this seems fun. This seems like something that I would be capable of doing. Got annihilated pretty early on because I had no idea what I was doing. And so you learn through trial and error. You learn by making mistakes. Nobody ever learns anything from being amazing and awesome at something from the get-go. So it's good
you
to talk through it.
You had to trust the Philadelphia Flyers on the road against the San Jose Sharks. And now you're going to know to do some consulting before that.
I hate that day. That day will live in infamy forever.
The interesting thing is I said on my video today, if the Los Angeles Kings do not beat the Washington Capitals tonight, no NHL video tomorrow. I've always said that if people tell you guys, like on TV, my biggest problem is when people they sell you up and down on something. And if they lead you off a cliff, there are no repercussions. So I've implemented my own repercussions. No NHL show tomorrow unless those LA Kings win, because I'm a huge advocate of what they've been building these last couple of years. And everything I've said about the Kings is the opposite of what I've said about the Washington Capitals. Literal two opposite directions. And yes, it is a pretty penny, but I am that confident, and there's just going to be a full no-show tomorrow if they don't win. So we'll see how that one goes.
Go Capitals!
Yeah. Seriously, I'd like to see it just for that.
Hey man, maybe I could use a little morning to myself. Be like Eytan out there in the woods.
You never know, man. You never know what you can find out here.
The Blair Witch Project 2. It's so fun.
Yeah, we do have that.
It's over after today. This period.
All right, later. Thank you guys so much once again for coming to the show. We're going to see, I think I like the midweek in between the ruckus of the previous week where we could talk about and before the ruckus of this upcoming week, because I know later in the week, everybody, you want those when you're like a bunch of maniacs with your tickets. Some of you people, it's pretty impressive. Some guy yesterday on Twitter, he just wrote down a whole bunch of what we said, and he's got a notepad like a guy who shows up to a MLB game and charts pitches. One of the craziest things that people do. I can't believe people do that. They show up to a game with a chart book like your high school baseball coach, and they write, low and outside there, 3-2. What the hell are they doing with all that? We'll never know. I'll be back with you guys next week. Make sure that I forgot to tell you this. If you go over to Caesars and you want, I know we talk about NFL on here, but if you want to have faith in my no show, if the Kings don't win tomorrow, if you take the LA Kings and you put Adrian Kempe to register a point, because if they're going to win, he's likely going to be involved. You're going to get those Kings at plus money, and your first bet's going to be risk-free up to $1,000 as long as you're a new user on the platform. You just got to be over 21, no fake ID, sneaking into the attic like Saved by the Bell, and you got to be located in a state or province up there in Canada where sports betting is permitted and obviously has Caesars. But if you or anybody has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, now that will conclude the show. Thank you guys for coming back. I will see you next week.